Sit! Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Garret Price.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going swell after that awesome show yesterday of breaking down the running back ones and odds of them being a running back one again. What good information that was. We're back and we're doing a Cornerstone draft, right? So, like, what's a Cornerstone draft, you may ask, for all you out there that don't know? It's me, or let me use proper English, which I never do, Garret and I, drafting only players from the last three draft classes. And we're going to build teams out. Now, usually Matt's here and sometimes Garret. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate 1, 1, 1, 1. But we're going to draft 4 teams total. So we're going to look at it as we're 2 owners of different teams and draft these teams. So we'll have 4 teams to kind of go through. This will be a Superflex tight end premium Cornerstone draft.
Yep. Yeah. So this is always fun because, you know, the I think it was Ray GQ that kind of started this trend of looking at these Cornerstone players in this Cornerstone draft and concepts that we've always had, but he did a good job kind of pulling it all together. But basically what it is when we talk about Cornerstone players on our team, yes, there's outliers of older guys that you would consider like Cornerstone players. But for the most part, it's that young core that you say, I can build around these guys and I can have a dynasty for a long time because of these players. That's what we're looking at in the most recent classes. So we're looking at one class that hasn't played a snap yet, and we're comparing them to the last 2 classes that we have gotten to see on the field and how they compare. So really, really interesting concept. I think it's a lot of fun, and it really kind of puts some legs to why we have certain guys where. And sometimes, and Rich, this has happened, I know, to both of us before, where we think we want one guy over another, and then we go to actually draft, and we're like, I need to change my rankings because I would rank this player higher, but I'm absolutely drafting this guy ahead of him.
Yeah, it's fun. It's going to show you kind of where we value these players coming in. You know, the unknown of the rookie class that's here in front of us, what we've only seen 1 year of, and then what we have 2 years of data of us. So, like, a Cornerstone player is going to be somebody that you build a franchise around, right? Like, so these are guys that you're mostly targeting in startups anyways. Like, outside of quarterbacks like Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, a couple of these like receivers that just signed the biggest contracts ever, like Justin Jefferson. These are going to be like the first and second round picks that you're drafting, some of these guys. So yeah, well, let's go with it. I'm on the clock first here, and exactly how you start out the show, I literally just brought up my rankings to see something because I'm on the clock here. It's a Superflex tight end premium league. The number 3 overall startup player I have in Superflex leagues is on the board here in CJ Stroud. But there is a part of me that wants to take my 12th overall player in Caleb Williams. It's that unknown, right? Like, it's that unknown.
Yeah.
You know, CJ Stroud came out, had a really good year. He finished his quarterback 11 overall, which is really good. It's a quarterback 1. Good overall. Doesn't offer a ton of rushing upside. Yes, they just brought in Stephon Diggs, so that's a 1-year deal, you know, so it doesn't really move my needle a ton. They locked up Nico Collins for 3 years. They got Tank Dell. But, man, like, Caleb Williams is so tempting here because of the unknown and his – we've been talking about this guy for 2 years, right? Yep. Like 2 years. But I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick with my board. I'm going to take CJ Stroud as the number 1 overall player in a Superflex tight end premium draft over these last couple of years. So I'm going to take CJ Stroud here, first overall. I hope 3 years down the road, I'm not going, I wish I would have taken Caleb Williams. But maybe you don't take Caleb Williams here, and maybe I can get him in my other team.
Yeah, well, I'm taking Caleb Williams. But all of that being said,
I should have talked him up so much. I knew it as I was talking. I was like, I'm just kind of giving Garret an excuse here to take him. Maybe you would have taken Marv Harrison.
No, I'm absolutely going Caleb. And if it makes you feel better, that was the plan here for me either way. Whoever you didn't take of those 2, that's who I was going to grab. But it reinforces a point that I talked about on our quarterback sells episode where we're like, we're not really selling anybody. Like, quarterbacks are good value. But if we were to do so, I like the guys that are quarterback 6, 7, 8, 9 just as much as I like the quarterbacks that are 3, 4, 5. And CJ Stroud falls into that 3, 4, 5 range for a lot of people. And the 6, 7, 8 range is, something like Caleb Williams and Justin Herbert and guys like that. I like those guys just as much. Okay. So that's why it kind of works out either way for me. I like Caleb Williams just as much as I like CJ Stroud. If I'm not picking one or two in a real startup, give me pick 9, 10, 11, 12 then, because I don't think the value's there. I'm going Caleb Williams. He's a stud. It was a fairly easy pick for me here. But you have a really tough decision now with your second team, because I could see you going 3 or 4 different directions, and I wouldn't be shocked at any one of them.
Yeah, this is a lot of different ways you can go, but I'm going to stick with what I stick with, and that's my first round pick in a Superflex tight end Premier League is I want to have a quarterback. Like if I don't have a quarterback, we need to start 2. It's a Cornerstone draft. So if we were doing a startup this way, like, hey, you can only draft these players. Like, I've seen some new leagues that do this. I think Scott Fish had one out there. It seemed really cool where, like, they only could draft the first 3-year players for their startup, and that's it. And all their teams that's their roster. That's all they can have. And then after that, they start to open up players down the road. So
interesting.
If I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the board, I look at myself as having 2 options, really. It's Anthony Richardson and Jayden Daniels. One is a couple years younger than Anthony Richardson. But with that being said, Anthony Richardson's got a couple years of injuries. He's got historical shoulder injuries. Still love the player. If the player I was taking off the board was off the board, if you took him and Caleb Williams was there, I would take Anthony Richardson. But I'm going to take Jayden Daniels. I absolutely love his rushing upside. I absolutely love it here. I love his deep ball accuracy. I think, with where he went, number 2 overall in the draft, this is a franchise with a new owner, building new stadiums, like an owner that wants to win. They're going to do everything they can to build around Jayden Daniels and this new coaching staff. So tough call for me here between those 2 guys, but I still got to make sure I get my quarterback, and I'm taking Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, so we didn't talk about this beforehand because this does potentially alter my pick. Are we going snake or are we going straight? Which one are we doing?
We should probably snake it, right?
Okay. All right.
That seems like the fair way to do it, right?
Yeah, and that changes my strategy, because if not getting 2 players here would drastically change things. So for me, I do have Anthony Richardson as the next one in my rankings. And so I'm going to take him here for the cornerstone of my team 2. But I would have had a very hard time passing up Marvin Harrison Jr. And so the fact that I get to snake around is huge for me, because now I get Marvin Harrison Jr. and Anthony Richardson, which is just an awesome young duo to start off with. Anthony Richardson, obviously there's a decent amount of risk there with Anthony Richardson, but what we saw on the field, there doesn't feel like there's a lot of risk there. The risk just comes with the injuries. But on the field, he looks like the guy that we thought he was going to be coming out of college. So feel great about him. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is literally the best prospect that I've ever scouted at the wide receiver position. So it would have been tough for me to pass up on him, even though I do technically have Anthony Richardson higher.
No, and I get it. And that's the one I was thinking there at Jayden Daniels. I was like, man, if he takes, whoever he takes, which I assume you maybe you would have went Jayden Daniels and Anthony Richardson, possibly, maybe not. Like, it could have came back to me. I just didn't want to risk it. I thought about taking Marvin Harrison Jr. there, but it kind of worked out in the favor, because there's another prospect here that I love at the receiving position still that I think offers a ton of high upside, and that's Garrett Wilson, wide receiver of the New York Jets. I'll pair him with Jayden Daniels. Sticking to my core here, like, I'm looking at other quarterbacks, and I can I'm okay with a lot of these guys going different ways here. Coming back to me, there's a couple different ways I can go. So I don't want to miss out on another top tier receiver for this team, because those are going to start to thin out a little bit quicker. I love to have that, at least one of those guys, elite guys, a first round top 12 guy in my overall rankings on my roster, and Garrett Wilson fills that void to go with Jayden Daniels.
I think that's a great pick. I had my eye on this guy, and I thought this was the route that you were going to go. So I'm going to go Bijan Robinson here. We just got done with an episode talking about those top-tier running backs, how few of them there are, but once you find one, that's you got to sink your teeth into him. So to get Bijan Robinson here, it is super flex, so you want to emphasize those quarterbacks. And Garrett Wilson's been awesome, and I could see myself, had I had the option of Garrett Wilson, I could potentially see myself, being upset if he balls out like we think he could with Aaron Rodgers. But that upside of a Bijan Robinson is just so tantalizing. So I'm going to take Bijan Robinson to go with Caleb Williams. Two really good young, obviously they're all going to be young studs, but two really good young players to go back-to-back on that team.
Hey, guys, let me tell you about our friends at Sleeper. Guess what? Our app the mini is live on Sleeper right now. The Dynasty GM, pretty. You can use the analyzer. You can use the trade calculator. And my favorite thing is the inbox, right? Where all your trades from all your Sleeper leagues are right there. You can actually push trades through the actual Sleeper app. And right now, we could be more excited to be partners with them. And right now, if you don't know, they are doing DFS. And I know how many people that play Dynasty play DFS as well. And right now, there's not a better place to play DFS than Sleeper. They're offering up to 100 times your entry, the highest payout in the whole DFS market right now. You can track your fantasy players and your Sleeper picks in real time. All you got to do is choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame, live in-game, or even across different sports. Pick more or less than the predicted stats, and only on Sleeper you can get up to 100 times your payout. You can share with your friends and get rewarded together. Make sure you use that promo code NERD so our friends know that friends sent them their way. And get your deposit match and have a good time. Have all your DFS, all of your fantasy leagues, and now even a Dynasty GM in one spot. It is fully operational inside Sleeper right now. And then when you're a Nerd Herd member, you get that full access to that. And remember, you also want to download the Dynasty Nerds app because they're both in there. Check it out. Check our friend Sleeper. Check out the DFS. Use that promo code NERDS.
Get your whole estate.
Yeah, and it's 100% the reason why I'm taking Breece Hall here as my next pick to go with CJ Stroud is because we talked about in the last show, yes, the running back should be the most fluid back on your position, but when you can get one of those generational guys that you consider a generational guy that could be 4 more running back one seasons, then you're talking a Hall of Fame fantasy football player. I think Breece Hall fits that mold, right?
Yeah,
I think he slides right in there. And then look at this team. I'm really torn
who I'm
going to pair out with CJ Stroud and Breece Hall here. But I think I'm going to go ahead and kind of do a little bit of a shocker possibly, but I'm going to take Brock Purdy.
That's a good pick.
You're talking about a guy he was a quarterback one last year. He's only 24 years old. There's no way San Francisco does not extend this guy. He just took him to a Super Bowl. There's a chance the 49ers go win a Super Bowl this year or go back to it. So this is a guy who runs his system. He's only 24 years old. I still think he falls by the wayside of somebody. I'm trying to think of where he finished last year overall. Brock Purdy was quarterback 6 overall, right, last year. 6 overall last year at quarterbacks. When it comes to overall fantasy players last year in PPR leagues, when we're looking at Brock Purdy, Garrett, was the 10th highest scoring player overall in all of fantasy football last year. So here I am in the third round of this Cornerstone between just 4 teams. But a lot of times Brock Purdy goes in the third, fourth round of startup drafts, a top 10 overall scorer, and he's still kind of being hampered by that Mr. Irrelevant, right? Him being Mr. Irrelevant is kind of still forcing his value down, making him one of the most valuable Dynasty players out there. Brock Purdy is somebody that you guys are trade for. And I think I talked about this maybe 5 months ago or so on the podcast saying that I think even Matt said it too. We were kind of talking Brock Purdy, how much of value he is in Dynasty and especially Superflex right now. And now's the time to strike on Brock Purdy because once he signs that extension, which he's not eligible to do, I believe, until after this year, once he signs that, I think that's when we see the ADP jump a round or two, right? Where he gets that 4-year, X amount of million guaranteed. And then definitely if he comes off another top 10 finishes this year, we'll really see that jump. I think now, this summer, is probably one of the last times you could probably get the best value you can for a while on a guy like Brock Purdy. So CJ Stroud, Breece Hall, Brock Purdy is where I feel comfortable right now with the 1-1. A lot of different ways I can go, but I still want that high scoring fantasy football quarterback.
Yeah, I think that was a fantastic selection. I was trying to decide, if he fell to me, would I take him? Because we also have to look at the landscape here. He's kind of the last safe quarterback. After that, there's a lot of risk. It's a lot of rookies because we don't have literally the only quarterback from the 2022 class that we have in here is Brock Purdy. There's no Desmond Ridder. There's no Malik Willis. There's no Kenny Pickett. Yeah. None of those guys are even worth putting down on this sheet. So that's the hard part is we're only picking from two classes really at quarterback other than Brock Purdy. So fortunately this class had a ton of quarterbacks, which helped out a little bit. But 2022 made it really tough because Brock Purdy's the only one from his class because none of the other guys are here anymore. So it made it really, really difficult. So it helped that you took Brock Purdy out of the equation, but I'm torn. I am torn on what to do here at the position. I think I am going to double up at running back, and I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs to get two top 3 dynasty running backs, not even just our cornerstones, but overall, these are two guys that are going to go in the top 3 running back-wise at basically every single draft. Maybe you have a rogue person that does a Christian McCaffrey to try to, win now. But for the most part, it's going to be these 3 guys. So to get those 2 guys, there's a lot of receivers that are tempting there. There's tight ends. There's a lot of stuff here that I could do. But I feel like I wanted to get another running back for that team, and he just screamed value to me.
I'm not going to lie. I was looking at Brock Purdy and Jahmyr Gibbs. I know I just took Breece Hall there, but I was like, man, it would be nice just to get those top 2 young guys at running back. It would offer me really good trade value down the road. I think Jahmyr Gibbs kind of opens the door. Again, I think you kind of get, if you offered somebody in Superflex League, Jahmyr Gibbs for Brock Purdy, that might go down 50% of the time. You know what I mean? That might be a deal that you can get done, which is crazy. Yeah. You're trading a running back for a top 10 overall scorer and quarterback. I obviously would take Purdy there, but it was close enough where I considered it, right? If I own Brock Purdy as my 3rd quarterback, somebody offered me Gibbs, I'm like, can you give me a second on top?
Yeah. And I think ADP-wise, they're very close as well because both of those guys are going right around that beginning of round 3 turn there, end of round 2.
That's what I would guess.
So, yep.
All right, so I'm up here in my second team with Jayden Daniels and Garrett Wilson. This is easy for me here. I'm going to go Malik Neighbors. I'm just chasing that upside of a very electric player with extremely good draft capital. That gives me 2 really young receivers. Well, obviously, everybody's young. We're talking Cornerstone draft.
I've said it too.
I know, I keep saying it. All these guys are young. I'm like, 24-year-old quarterback. Well, they're all 24.
They're all young.
They're all young. So I'm going to take Malik Neighbors here. Number 1 option in that Giants offense, day 1, right? Day 1, he's the best weapon in that offense right out the gate, and it's not even close. So pairing it up with Garrett Wilson, Jayden Daniels, kind of gives me a little bit more leeway of how I want to go maybe afterwards because I at least have 2 good receivers here. We'll see how it plays out because I'm going to stick with the board here and take some really good players. I am trying to build a team here, though, too. We're doing this a little bit. I'm trying to build, if we're doing a Cornerstone draft and this is how you have to build your team, it's not just taking just the best player. You're trying to compete as well. You want to build a solid team here. So I take Malik Neighbors.
I would have lost a lot of money just now. I thought for certain you were going to take Sam Laporta here. I thought without a shadow of a doubt, I would have bet so much money and been in so much debt because of it. But I am going to take Sam Laporta here. He did kind of separate himself last year compared to a lot of the other tight ends. That's why he's kind of in a tier of his own. And I think you can make a strong argument that maybe other guys catch up. Maybe that tier goes away a little bit, and maybe that's why you decided to not go with him. And I can't blame you at all for that. But he showed me enough in year 1. It's going to be the exact same offense with the exact same offensive coordinator, same quarterback, same pieces. Nothing is going to change. So I expect the numbers to be fairly similar for Sam Laporta in 2025 or in 2024 as it was in 2023. But now is where it gets tough for me. Man, there are a lot of good options. It's just the route that I want to go. Let me tell you what's going down at Underdog Fantasy. Guys, it is time for Best Ball Mania 5. Don't miss out on the huge $1.5 million first place prize for only a $25 entry. This year, Best Ball Mania 5 will pay out $15 million in total prize money. Download the Underdog Fantasy app and deposit at least $10 using promo code NERDS. Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100. So that means if you put in 20, they'll put in 20. You put in 50, they'll put in 50, all the way up to $100. Test your skills against the best and try to win that $1.5 million first place prize at Best Ball Mania. Don't forget, use promo code NERDS at Underdog Fantasy.
Ton of good players left, man. There's a ton of good players on the board here that build around. Says, yeah, which way do you want to go? What's the structure of this team right now? Like this team too, you have Anthony Richardson, Marvin Harrison, and Sam Laporta. So like you've attacked like multiple different aspects of this roster with your first 3 picks.
You know what? Let's just go down the board. I'm going to take Devon Achane. I got one guy at each position now. I literally just put out a video talking about him as one of the best startup options. And Rich, I don't know if you saw it. I was breaking down his numbers. And if you were to take his numbers conservatively, because he was at 7.8 yards per carry last year, which is just it's just nuts. But even if he just goes from historically good to just the best yards per carry right now out of most of the guys at 5.5 yards a carry, if you were to kind of extrapolate his numbers and even dumb them down, like I said, not at 7.8, but at 5.5, and still the same amount of carries, which I expect he would get more, and lower his touchdown rate. I did all of that. So I dumbed down the numbers a bunch, and they still, in 14 games on a points per game basis, was still almost identical to Jahmyr Gibbs last year. So, he has a chance to be generational. Low end, he's a, running back 1 for the next 4 or 5 years. High end, he's Christian McCaffrey level. It's nuts.
Oh yeah, and it's what he did last year was never done before. Right? His yards per carry, and he's being somewhat suppressed too. A lot of people are thinking that Jalen Wright pick. Let Devon just live in that world he lives in right now. He doesn't need to be the main running back, and he will thrive. And there's a report an hour before we did a podcast. I was reading some stuff out of OTAs out of Miami, and Tua ripped a rope to Devon Achane that busted off a quick 20 yards. They said it was the play of the game. If Achane stays healthy, Achane's going to eat. Love him. Again, I've loved him from day one. You could argue, Garrett, that I was the highest person on Devon Achane and the entire Dynasty analyst community.
Yeah, true.
I was pumping him so hard on this podcast. And even I did a YouTube video on him. I don't do a lot of YouTube videos. I went on my way to do a YouTube video on him. And you can look before the NFL, beforehand, how much I believed in Devon Achane. At the time, I was calling him Devon Achane. That's how old it was.
Yep. Before we knew.
I think I ended the video you might as well call him Devon A. Plane because the sky's the limit with this kid. And boy, was I right on that one. So I'm up on the board here, and you're right. I love tight ends. I could have missed out here. And I knew the odds if I skipped, a tight end here and taking Malik Neighbors that you'd probably take Laporta. But I was okay with that, baby, because when I looked at the board, I saw that my husband would still be there. And I saw that if you asked me, I would say, here's a little sneak peek. It's not going to be too sneaky. It's kind of bold, but in love, too. I think Dalton Kincaid has a chance to finish as a tight end 1 overall this year in fantasy football. So where Sam Laporta has leapfrogged the number 1 overall Dynasty tight end after his performance last year, I could see Dalton Kincaid leapfrogging him and him being the tight end 1. I think we're really blessed here with a really good young class with Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Dalton Kincaid, and Sam Laporta right now to really give us a good core of guys that we could root for a while now. So I'm going to take Dalton Kincaid here, being tight end premium. I know Brock Bowers is on the board, but again, we don't know the long-term quarterback there. We don't know what's going on there long-term. And we know that Dalton Kincaid is locked up with Josh Allen. And we know that Josh Allen or that Dalton Kincaid is Not saying that Keon Coleman can't be that guy or anybody else, but likely Dalton Cade are probably the number one option in this passing game. So I'm all in on Dalton Cade. I have since day one, and now he's a part of this sweet young roster of Jayden Daniels, Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors, and Dalton Cade. That's something that gets me excited.
Yeah, what a group of young guys. All right, I am gonna go. I think I'm gonna go with Drake London here. No! Is that who you're gonna take?
My God. I thought about it and just went and get Kincaid on my other team, but I didn't want to risk it.
That's funny.
I had to piggyback off your gambling odds too. But yeah, I almost took Drake London. He's only 22. Young guy.
A young guy in this shirt. I am shocked. No, I really like Drake London. I think he showed enough on tape to show that he has the ability to be a legit number one receiver. It was just quarterback play. We've seen the same thing out of Garrett Wilson, but for some reason, we discount Drake London even further than Garrett Wilson. Both now get a huge upgrade this year, obviously because of health for Garrett Wilson. But Kirk Cousins, great upgrade. But he's also got the long-term security in getting Michael Penix as well. So I'm really, really thrilled about that for him. So I ended up going Drake London here. There's a lot of good receivers, and you could have argued 3 or 4 of these guys to be taken in this spot, and I think they would have all been great picks. I ended up going with Drake London.
Nice. So I'm on a board here. I'm going to go Puka Nacua with my first pick. Honestly, you could have made a case for Puka to go any round, and it would have been validated. So Here I am, my first pick in the 4th, and he's off the board. I don't think I need to tell you why. Coming off the year he did, running back as a wide receiver 1, locked in, looking good so far in OTAs as well. So Puka Nacua. And then I'm on a board here with my next pick, and I'm looking. So this team is CJ Stroud, Breece Hall, Brock Purdy, and Puka Nacua. And there's different ways I want to go here. And I'm kind of going against my rankings a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and go Brock Bowers since I don't have a tight end. And we've kind of talked about Trey McBride and how we feel about him, but I wouldn't trust Brock Bowers to get back to me in this format and the teams that we have. And like I said before, when I do a startup, I have to come away with one of those guys that I think is an elite tier tight end. So to get a 21-year-old guy who's a top 7 NFL draft pick, I can't – arguably, outside Kyle Pitts, the best tight end I've ever scouted on tape, I can't pass him up here. I took Dalton Kincaid out of with my heart. I'm taking Brock Bowers with my brain.
No, it makes sense. Oh, I'm struggling here. I am going to go with
I'm a snap drafter. You're over here like thinking
I know
like this guy.
I know.
I like this guy.
Yeah, I suck at moving quickly here. I'm gonna go with Rome Odunze. I'm gonna pair up Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze there. Gives myself a really nice core of Caleb Williams, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Drake London, Rome Odunze. We've got some guys that have been in the league for a year or two, look solid. Some young guys that I think have crazy upside. Obviously, they're all young. Keep saying that. But I like Rome Odunze a lot. Was really high on his tape. And he's one that might not pay off this year, but I think will long term. And dang it, I gambled that you were going to take McCarthy there. I was going to go Drake May, and I gambled that you were going to take McCarthy, and you ended up taking Drake May next. Dang it.
I typed it in. You're reading my writing here. So
yep.
I love the Odunze pick. I love him long term as well. But I'm taking Drake May. Honestly, Garrett, when I took Puka Nacua, I wanted to take Drake May there as well.
Yeah.
But I already have Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud in the team. If I was doing a real startup, I might have still taken Drake May there just because of the value. And you're right. Like, I think Jared texted me the other day because I made a move or something. He's like, whoa, did you flip Drake May and JJ McCarthy in your rankings? I'm like, yeah, I just flipped them. He's like, oh, that's not a good choice. I'm like, you don't know anything. It just comes down to me. And listen, I know Justin Jefferson just signed that extension, and him and JJ McCarthy are together. I just can't get over the fact, and listen, I still like JJ McCarthy. I do. But Drake May has got that rocket arm. I loved his tape. Love this tape is the wrong word to say. I liked his tape. A prospect we talked about for 2 years. Like, he was in that talk with Caleb Williams beforehand. And, the fact that the Patriots had so many offers and so many opportunities to go get any of these other quarterbacks, but they're like, no way, we're taking Drake May, third overall. Like, we're not moving. We believe him in that much. And that J.J. McCarthy wasn't even the fourth quarterback off the board, right? Like that he was the fifth quarterback off the board is just enough to sway it just slightly for me to take the upside of Drake May. And I think J.J. McCarthy right now may be a little safer because the way he's insulated with the weapons around him, playing in a dome, his offensive coordinator, like all that screams that J.J.'s safer. But in a Cornerstone draft, I'm shooting for upside here, and I'm taking Drake May.
Yeah, I can't blame you one bit. That, like I said, I'm mad because I almost took him there with my other team, decided not to, went with Rome Odunze, who I would probably take higher in a real draft, but still, the quarterbacks are very scarce in this. There's only so many good ones to go around, and so I would have had a very hard time. I have a hard time passing him up. And you're right, J.J. McCarthy ended up no longer being a top 10 quarterback. The team that he went to, the Minnesota Vikings, were trying to trade for Drake May. That's who they were targeting. That's who they wanted. They ended up going with McCarthy. Nothing wrong with McCarthy. I'm going to take him here, and he has the potential to be better earlier. I just think Drake May is a slightly better player, and I like to lean on the talent more than the situation. But there's no denying that J.J. McCarthy has the significantly better situation than Drake May at this point. So I'm going to hope that pans out for him, and he can be a solid quarterback for me long term. And even in the terms of all of these young guys, he's extra young compared to a lot of these other young guys. So lots of time for him to kind of develop and grow. And then this is one of those situations where I think I'm going to have to go change my rankings, Rich. Because right now, the guy I'm about to take, I have 2 running backs higher. I have 2 or 3 receivers higher. But I'm going to go with Jonathan Brooks here. And part of it is that episode that we just did on the running backs and the difference between the elite running backs and the non-elite running backs. And I think Jonathan Brooks, with being an early, well, I guess he was a mid-second round pick, so he's got the draft capital. He's a guy that has the production, like all of the things line up for him to potentially be an elite running back. He's going in the first round of rookie drafts. All of that is there. I'm terrified. Like, I'm even more scared of Kyron than I was before, and I was Team Kyron. I loved him as a prospect. But I'm scared. I'm scared. Kenneth Walker scares me a little bit too. I like the receivers, but at this point, they're all in a very similar range for me. Like,
yep.
I ended up going Jonathan Brooks with my second pick.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to find some stability there at the position. And you're right, the Carolina Panthers traded up for this running back too, so this is a guy they like a lot. So I don't hate the pick. He probably would have been out of the running back, so I probably would have taken Kenneth Walker ahead of him, but like I'm splitting hairs there, really. And honestly, Jonathan Brooks probably offers more upside. I'm on the clock. I'm going Trey McBride. And I know I just took Dalton Kincaid 2 picks earlier, but it's his tight end premium, and I don't believe I just wrote Trey Kincaid. I never believe that you have too many tight ends in a tight end premium league. Definitely with like McBride's value right now, he'd be a great trade piece. Great flex spot here. I still think he'll be the number 2 target outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'd always want to be a have at those premium positions. So quarterbacks, tight ends, I want to be a have. And you're right. Everything you said about Jonathan Brooks, like I feel comfortable with multiple receivers here in that same range. I feel comfortable with multiple running backs here in that range, quarterbacks left here in this range. To me, Trey McBride's the last like top tier tight end on the board. So to put him in there with Kincaid and McBride gives me a lot of options in this team. So it'd give me Jayden Daniels, Drake May, Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid. So like I'm literally 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers. Like I like that build. I feel very comfortable with that one.
So here's what I got to do now. And this happens in real drafts all the time, where I look at my team 1, and I love the team. Caleb Williams, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Drake London, Rome Odunze. Love it. Like, you put that team out there, people will be like, ooh, that's sexy. But what happened here is now it's to the point where I don't have a good quarterback to go after at the moment. I don't have a good tight end to go after at the moment. And the wrong thing to do in a startup is to say, well, I have to get one of them, so I'm just going to settle and I'm going to take Ben Sinnott, or I'm going to take Michael Penix or Bryce Young, or I'm going to just settle and take those guys. No, you keep taking the best player available on the board. And so that's what I'm going to do here. And as much as there are warts that worry me about this player, he's been a very productive player over the past 2 seasons. And he's in a situation where he should be getting a vast majority of the targets. So I'm going to take Chris Olave. I'm going to bolster that wide receiver core. And then post-draft, if I can figure out a way to get myself another quarterback, another tight end, I figure out how to do that. But I don't take a lesser player just to fill a position. I take the best player available that I can.
Yeah, and that's a good move. And I'm literally about to be on the same boat with you. I'm taking 2 players that I'm really high on that might not even, like, I don't know necessarily if you would have taken them in this order, but I'm taking Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I'm taking Ladd McConkey. And I think Ladd McConkey might be the one that kind of seems like a stretch, definitely with Xavier Worthy on the board, definitely with Tank Dell, Zach Flowers, Jordan Addison. Like, those guys are all on the board, but I'm taking my guy. I'm taking the guy that I believe in, the guy who is my 4th overall receiver. I had him rated higher than Xavier Worthy. I think in a rookie draft, like Xavier Worthy and Ladd McConkey, I would go 50-50 on which ones I took there. The fact that the Chiefs trade up for Worthy, he's a first-round pick. He's already dealing with some hamstring issues. I don't like that. Him and Xavier Legette both are dealing with hamstring issues. Definitely when Worthy already pulled up at the combine with that too, and we know that could be a lingering issue with fast guys. So I will say that does worry me long time for Xavier Worthy. It is in the back of my head. So I'm going to take the guy that I absolutely loved his tape in Ladd McConkey to go with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, I don't need to spend, I know Jackson Smith and Jigba, people are saying, he's a third wide receiver. I think in the worst case scenario, we're 1 year away from Jackson Smith and Jigba being the number 1 receiver in that team. He's a do-it-all, safe receiver. I think he can find a way to sneak in a couple wide receiver 1 years, but I think he'll live as a good, really wide receiver 2. And already having Puka Nacua on this team, I feel really good about that core. That gives me Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and my guy, Ladd McConkey. And this is a situation, again, like I'm going with my guy, my board, and Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, I don't think there's any issue with that. People have been asking me in the rookie drafts, what do I do at 9? If I'm after those top 8 picks, what do I do at 9? I said, you can take Jonathan Brooks, you can take Xavier Worthy, or you can take Ladd McConkey. I have all of those guys in the same tier. They're all fantastic players. What's your flavor? Because all of those guys are fantastic picks there. So I have zero issue with that. That will give me Xavier Worthy, though. And so I do think I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy here. I just mentioned I have him in the same tier as Ladd McConkey. I have him in the same tier as Jackson Smith and Jigba. There's a lot of these receivers that are in a very similar tier, but they're the best players available right now. And so I want to just keep scooping up good players, not necessarily going to other positions because they're in the same tier. I want to get good players, and these are the best players on the board right now.
Yeah, 100% get that. And I'm looking at this. I'm back into my team where I have 2, 2, and 2, right? 2 quarterbacks, 2 receivers, 2 tight ends. I have no running back here yet. I still don't have my 3rd receiver. And there's some good players on the board here at receiver that I really like that offer some really good upside. But I'm going to go ahead and double down on a guy that right now the team they're talking up. I keep hearing reports and by reliable reports too that this guy was the 2nd to 3rd guy on their total board altogether. He's older. He's picked up the offense. He looks like he's going to be the clear-cut starter day 1. And that's Bo Nix at quarterback. And, did I love Bo Nix's tape? No, didn't love it as much as Michael Penix, but I believe he's a day 1 starter and he's a quarterback in Superflex League. He has value here. And for me, having Drake May and Jayden Daniels, and being a Cornerstone draft, the only guy that we feel really good about of all these quarterbacks, to be fair, is CJ Stroud, right? That's the only guy that we're like, oh, okay, I feel really good about him.
Sure.
Yeah. Do I love Jayden Daniels? Do I love Caleb Williams? The guys that went 2 and 3? Yeah, of course. But we know quarterbacks are all a gamble here. So if we're doing, if this was the setup, it's Cornerstone draft, I feel way better about having a 3rd quarterback in case one of my misses, or worst case, both of my guys misses. But also knowing, out of all these guys, somebody's going to miss. This gives me better odds on my team to give me long-term security and flexibility to keep my team competitive long-term, whether it be starting lineup-wise or via trade. I said earlier this team, it's a reason I took Trey McBride after I already had Dalton Kincaid. I can't have enough of the premium positions here. And I was honestly, the other team where I had CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy, like, I just really like Jackson Smith and Jigba and Ladd McConkey. Otherwise, I would have taken Bo Nix there as well. He's been tempted on the back burner there, but I needed that. I just want a premium value position. And again, if I got Tank Dell or I got Zay Flowers or Rasheed Wright, like some of those lines are like any of these, like Jayden Reed, like I feel good about like all those guys. I don't feel we're running out of quarterbacks real quick here, Garrett. So
we are.
I want to get my third guy.
We are. So my team 2 right now is Anthony Richardson, Marvin Harrison, Sam Laporta, Devon Achane, JJ McCarthy, Jonathan Brooks. And I'm going to stick with my where this one's a little more spread out than my other team. I've got 2 quarterbacks. I've got a tight end. I've got 2 running backs and 1 receiver at this point. I'm going to take my second receiver in Tank Dell. He was a wide receiver 1 last year while he was healthy. Like, dude was an absolute beast in his rookie season. I know Stephon Diggs is there. I know Nico Collins got a new deal. But what Tank Dell did was truly incredible. I mean, he outpaced all of these other players not named Puka Nacua at the position while he played. So he had a fantastic career or start to his career. I think he continues with that. He's going to be with CJ Stroud for the foreseeable future. So I'm going to take him here. And then I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker here. I am our last episode really did scare me. It really did scare me because before it would have been easily Kyren Williams. I'm scared. I'm scared, Rich. Am I wrong for being scared? Should I be taking Kyren Williams there?
He scared me too. I told you. I mean, after that episode, Kyren Williams just screams like number 1 sell to me. Like it just does, it's just to be safe. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'd rather like the odds are against him. That's the thing. Like the odds are. So like you don't go to the poker table and you go to the roulette table and black has just come up 4 times straight. Right? 4 times straight, black comes up. Somebody give you $1,000. Where are you putting your money?
Dude.
You're going to put it on red.
You're going to put it on red.
Black just came up 4 times straight. Like,
odds are saying.
Because odds are saying that. Doesn't mean, of course, black could come. It's 50-50 for the most part. Like, right? It's really 50-50.
It's still 50-50
but the odds
again.
are saying, oh yeah, that's what's funny. You're like, oh, odds are, it's going to be red. No, the odds are still 50-50.
Still 50-50.
Well, like they have the double zero, so it's like 49%, whatever. But like,
right.
Yeah, like it's still 50-50, but like you're going to put your money
on red.
On the red. So like where it's 50-50, Kyren Williams is going to be a running back 1 again. Odds are saying his shelf life is pretty short. So I get that 100%. I would have taken Kenneth Walker as well.
All right, you're up.
And I'm on a board here where I don't have a running back yet on this team. I don't.
Are you going to take him?
I'm like, man, Kyren Williams is sexy there. But I'm with you. I'm taking the guys that I believe in, that I think offer long-term upside, and I don't ever reach. And know what position I'm never going to reach for, ever? It's a running back. So I'm taking Jayden Reed, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers. I absolutely, somebody who I didn't talk a lot about during his tape-wise. I thought he was just an okay receiver. Ended up going high in the second round. Like him and Rasheed Rice were somewhat of a shock where they went. Both came out and played really well. I thought Reed played better than Rasheed Rice. I thought Rasheed Rice was manufactured a little bit more. I think Jayden Reed's explosive on all 3 different levels. I think out of all those options, I'm really excited to see Christian Watson with his healthy hamstring. If everything they did worked, I'm really excited to see him there too to stretch the field. But I think Jayden Reed has that long-term future of being a number 1 option in an offense. Definitely Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love gets extended before this NFL season starts long-term. The way he played the second half of the year, to me, was top 5, top 6 NFL quarterback. So for me, I want the guy tied to him. Same reason why we want Xavier Worthy tied to Pat Mahomes. The same reason why Nico Collins tied to CJ Stroud, right? I want Jayden Reed, not only because he's a dynamic player, but also because he's tied to Jordan Love. I think that screams the upside. And when I'm looking at some of these receivers, they all scream upside. But of all of them here, this one's my favorite, and I'm going to go ahead and get my guy. And I need a third receiver anyway. So him, Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors, Jayden Reed sliding my 3 spot makes me feel really good about that.
So I ended up, like I said a little bit ago, I took Chris Olave because the value wasn't there at quarterback. Then the next round, I still didn't think the value was there. And so I went Xavier Worthy. Now I think I'm to the point where I think the value is there again. So now I will take my second quarterback off the board for team one. I'm going to take Michael Penix. Look, I'm going to have to be a little bit patient here. This isn't a player that's going to probably come in and start from day one. They just signed Kirk Cousins. But I don't know how long that leash really is. And when you look at players that were drafted in the top 10 and had to sit, there's only 2 other guys that had to do that were top 10 draft picks and had to sit at least a season. Those 2 players are Pat Mahomes and Phillip Rivers. 2 Hall of Fame level quarterbacks were 2 guys that were drafted top 10 and had to sit a season. Now, if you want to extend that out in the first round, you have other amazing players like Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love. Like, there were some very other good players that you can add to that list. But those top 10, it's only those 2. Michael Penix, I think, is a very, very good quarterback. And what's he getting to do that a lot of other quarterbacks aren't always getting to do? Go into a great situation. And that's what he gets in Atlanta. So I'm going to take Michael Penix. I am a big believer in Michael Penix. It's been well documented. I like him more than Bo Nix. I know I am the Lone Ranger on that here, but I'm willing to wait for a guy that I think is going to be a star.
Yeah, and listen, I like Michael Penix more than Bo Nix too. I do. It's just I took the immediate value. That's all I did there.
Sure.
But I understand completely why. Like, I like Michael Penix more as well. And you're right. Like, the quarterbacks are set. I think outside of Trey Lance, almost all those guys taken in the first round that got a sit year find success like down the road. Like, they're pretty successful quarterbacks. So, like, outside of Trey Lance, I think all those guys found some kind of success down the road. And a lot of them turned into be great quarterbacks by sitting for that year. So instead of being thrown for the fire. So I'm sitting here with my team. I'm definitely taking Bryce Young as my third quarterback on here. A player I don't love at all, but he was the number 1 overall pick in NFL draft. He's going to get a leash. They're going to try and build around him. At this point, like, I'm willing to gamble on a young quarterback than, well, they're all young again, but like a number 1 overall pick than any running back, any of the receivers I have in the same tier, or any of these tight ends left. So I'm definitely taking Bryce Young as one of my picks to go with Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud. Hey, Dynasty nerds, it's time to take your Dynasty game to the next level with FFPC's Dynasty Startup Leagues. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, FFPC has a league for you with entry fees ranging from $100 up to $5,000. Choose from a variety of formats, including Superflex, Best Ball Superflex, Triflex, 1QB, and Standard. With weekly lineups, waivers, trades, head-to-head matchups, and playoffs, FFPC's fully managed leagues provide the ultimate Dynasty experience. Most importantly, the leagues are here to stay. FFPC has never had a Dynasty league fold. They manage the entire commissioner experience from buy-in management to fulfilling your orphans. FFPC is perfect place to expand your Dynasty league portfolio. And here's the best part. As Dynasty Nerds listener, you can get $25 off any entry fee as a new member when you use the promo code NERDS. Head over to myffpc.com now to draft your team, manage your roster, and dominate your league with FFPC. That's myffpc.com. Promo code NERDS for $25 off any entry fee for new members. FFPC, where Dynasty dreams become a reality. And then with my next pick here, I am going to go Zay Flowers. Don't love the offense, but again, I really do love Zay. Like, I love the player in Zay Flowers. I think he's a really talented receiver. I liked him. I hate his situation. I'm hoping that his talent, which is pretty high, like he's a very good route runner, runs extremely tough here. Looked decent in offense last year. I hope maybe he could possibly break this mold with Lamar Jackson to put up a wide receiver 1, which hasn't been done ever. I don't think Lamar Jackson's ever produced a wide receiver 1 at the end of a year. So
that's a good question.
I don't think so.
I don't think he.
I don't think Holly Brown never finished that way. He had multiple like week 1 Holly wide receiver 1 finishes, but because of injuries he didn't finish that way. So I'm gonna take Zay Flowers here. A lot of different other receivers on the board, but I really like this guy's tape. And I can go 50-50 because there's literally other guys I'm looking at right now like, oh, should I take him? Oh, should I take him over him?
Sure.
But I'm going to take Zay Flowers.
No, it's a good call. It's a good call there. I'm going to go with Will Levis. He's literally our last quarterback unless we want to get into guys that have 0% chance to start this year. or anytime in the near future. I'm going Will Levis, and it's partly because of my team build here. Michael Penix isn't going to play for me early on. Will Levis will get to play year one. So between those two guys, it will give me a short-term outlook guy, a long-term outlook guy, and it gives me 3 quarterbacks, which there's only, not every team has 3 quarterbacks. So It will give me 3 quarterbacks, and that helps me feel better about taking a lot of position players early. That kind of helps insulate that for me.
Yeah, and I mentioned how I took Zay Flowers. I was really looking at Will Levis and just
Were you thinking going back to back?
At 4 quarterbacks. Yeah, it's just it's where the value was. But I took Zay Flowers. I had 3 out of 4 teams. It's okay here. All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take Kyren Williams.
Good pick.
I don't have a running back on this team yet. The value's there. I don't love it, but I'm hoping he finishes as a running back 1 this year, and I can move on from him after that. And when we read all these teams off on paper afterwards, my team's going to sound even extra sweet because I have Kyren Williams on it. He's my first running back taken off the board here. So Kyren Williams.
I love it. And you took him, and so I didn't have to because I was going to take him because he just fell too far, and the short-term outlook still looks fairly solid. But I'll get the guy that my heart wants, and I don't have a big tier gap between Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson. I don't.
I was going to take Trey Benson over Kyren. I just couldn't do it. I wanted Trey Benson.
You did, so I didn't have to.
I want Trey Benson, but I got to take Kyren. I literally in my head, I was like, wow, this team's going to sound real sweet on paper when I say Kyren Williams at the end.
I'm with you. I would have taken Kyren Williams, and then I was like, well, do I go Kyren and Benson? I don't know. But I love Trey Benson. I love that situation. I love his tape. It would not shock me if this time next year we're talking about Trey Benson being one of those top 7-8 running backs because of how well he finishes this year, his outlook, the amount of touches he's going to get. I love everything about this player. And if he does, the one thing that he told Connor Rogers at the it was either Combine or Senior Bowl, one thing he said is I'm going to work my tail off to be as good as I can in the receiving game. And if I'm hearing that, where this guy really is wanting to be as good as he possibly can in the receiving game, it's wheels up. Because we know between his tackles, this guy is an absolute stud. So I really like Trey Benson there. This pick gets a little tricky then for me. I am going to go with... I'm going to take Jordan Addison. I like Jordan Addison. I don't love Jordan Addison, but I think ADP-wise, he's a good value here. I think for most people, he's in the same tier as, Reed and Dell and Flowers and those guys. So it's really kind of just taking the last guy in a tier here, and I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I get it. And you got J.J. McCarthy, which is kind of nice too.
Yep, get the... Go ahead.
I'm going to take a player that I liked more than you and Matt, and I'm going to take Brian Thomas.
Yeah.
What was it, 4th receiver off the board there in this NFL draft?
Correct.
A tick into teens. Again, for a receiver of his size, his upside, that went in the first round, kind of, again, he's going in the second round of a lot of these rookie drafts, which is somewhat nuts. It's hit and miss, back end of the first, high second round, Brian Thomas. Probably some of the better value here in the draft. Hearing some good reports on OTAs, but usually hear really good reports on OTAs, nothing bad. This player's looking good. Practice against here in 7-on-7s. Well, he looked really good in 7-on-7s versus a third-string defensive back, but I'm going to go, again, at this point, we're chasing a lot of upside here, and I'm going to go ahead with the first-round pick in Brian Thomas.
No, I think it's a good pick. Rich, we'll do these last 2 picks here, and then... maybe we'll do rapid fire for another 2 or 3 rounds after that. What do you think?
Well, we're at 50 minutes. Why don't we just why don't we go rapid fire here right now?
Okay.
Bang these guys out. The guys are here, and then we'll read off the teams afterwards. How about we just go there? We're at 50 minutes now, so no need for analysis on the rest of these guys. I think we say their name. It's all going to make sense where they go, and then we'll just kind of read our teams off and see what we like the most.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with James Cook here.
I'm going to go Isaiah Pacheco. And I'm going to go Isaiah Pacheco. And then I'm going to go Ricky Pearsall.
Okay. I'm going to go Tyjae Spears.
Okay. I'm going to go Xavier Legette.
Okay. I am going to go Rashee Rice. And then I will go with Zamir White.
Keon Coleman.
Okay. I'm going to go Adonai Mitchell.
Then I'm going to go Christian Watson. Christian Watson. Okay. And Ben Sinnott.
Good pick. I am going to go Jalen Wright.
I'm going to go Marshawn Lloyd.
Okay. I'm going to go Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft.
I'm going to go I got Kyron Williams. I'm going to go ahead and go Blake Corum.
All right. And let's just finish up this round because I think that'll be plenty at this point.
Okay. Yeah.
I am going to go with Josh Downs.
So my last pick.
Your last pick.
Comes down to Jamison Williams, Jermaine Byrne, or Quentin Johnston.
Some good options.
I'll go Jamison Williams.
Take the upside.
Yeah,
I get it.
in the draft pedigree. So, all right, I'll read my team 1. You'll read your team 1. Then I'll read my team 2. You'll read team 3 and see where the chips lay. Okay, so my team 1 is C.J. Stroud, Breece Hall, Brock Purdy, Puka Nacua, Brock Bowers, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ladd McConkey, Bryce Young, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Pacheco, Ricky Pearsall, Christian Watson, Ben Sinnott, and Jamison Williams.
My team 1 is Caleb Williams, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Drake London, Rome Odunze, Chris Olave, Xavier Worthy, Michael Penix, Will Levis, James Cook, Tyjae Spears, Adonai Mitchell, Jalen Wright, and Josh Downs.
My other team is Jayden Daniels, Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors, Dalton Kincaid, Drake May, Trey McBride, Bo Nix, Jaden Reed, Kyron Williams, Brian Thomas, Xavier Legette, Keon Coleman, Marshawn Lloyd, Blake Corum.
And then the final team is Anthony Richardson, Marvin Harrison, Sam Laporta, Devon Achane, J.J. McCarthy, Jonathan Brooks, Tank Dell, Kenneth Walker, Trey Benson, Jordan Addison, Rashee Rice, Zamir White, Luke Musgrave, and Tucker Kraft.
You know what's funny is I'm looking at these teams as a whole and trying to pick my favorite one. And my two favorite are the last two teams I picked. My second team and your second team are my two favorite by looking at it. I like all the team. Like all these teams are nice. Obviously, it's like they're full of young guys.
Yeah.
But like I'm starting off I'm looking at the quarterback position. You know, your team too. I think Anthony Richardson, J.J. McCarthy. Mine has Jayden Daniels, Trey May, and Bo Nix. So I really like that. And it's a team where I faded running back and you did not fade running back. I like those teams the most. I think the back two. So hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Dynasty Rich.
Yeah.
Let us know which one you like the most for these Cornerstone players. If you have these guys on your roster, they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm having a hard time like looking at all these teams. As soon as I think I like one more than the other, then I'm like, but that guy kind of boosts that team, and it's a tough call. I think there are four pretty even teams, so really curious to see how that ends up playing out. We'll definitely post this a little while after the show airs because we want to give you enough time to listen to the show, but then we'll give you a chance to vote afterward as well.
Yeah, it'd be kind of nice. Like,
all right.
We should post this to Twitter and say which team's the best Cornerstone team. I'd like to know which one. I would honestly, and I know it's my team. I think I would pick my second team that I draft. It's my favorite.
Okay,
and mostly because it has Dalton Kincaid and Trey McBride.
That is pretty sweet.
And that's the team I didn't take any running backs.
You didn't take any running backs on that team. And it's funny because my favorite of the two, you were talking about, you were trying to decide between your second and my second. And I think I like my first team better than my second team, which is interesting.
It's a good team too. It's just I don't like your quarterback situation. That's what sucks.
The quarterback is tricky. If Penix works out, that team is baller. Yeah. But a lot of that really depends on Michael Penix.
Yeah, or Will Levis. Yeah, and that's the only reason. Like you have it's like, oh man, those running backs do make it look sexy. It's a good team. They're all good. Sure. I mean, I look at my first team. I'm like, I got CJ Stroud, Breece Hall, Brock Purdy. And I still think that Brock Purdy effect, the whole thing I said about Brock Purdy, like, it still makes it not look as good. I mean, a whole argument about why it should. I'm like, wow, man, that team's got Breece Hall, Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith. It's the receivers aren't as strong on that team as the rest too. But that's how it works out, right? Sure. So we'll be back next week talking more Dynasty Fantasy Football. Hit us up. We're on Twitter. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're anywhere you can have social media. If there's social media, we're there. Get in the App Store. Download the Dynasty GM. Have a good rest of your summer day. We'll be back next week.
Deuces.